Hey everybody, I'm Jordan.
And I'm Dakota.
And Andrew's on the TV, we think, eventually.
Hello.
And, we can hear Andrew. All right, and Sunday was the 15th anniversary or 15th birthday of PowerShell.
Yep.
And we figure we have three people that are pretty big fans of PowerShell. We've made a career out of it. We might as well get up here and talk about what makes it great.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so I guess PowerShell started back with Bruce Pyatt and Jeffrey Snover started building something called Monad, which was, there's a word I'd never heard before. They were trying to simulate...
If I remember correctly, it's a mathematical concept. Something that you see, I think maybe in like a language like Haskell, but I could be wrong there. Don't quote me. I'm not a Haskell pro.
All right, so but what was, I've already forgot the word. It was...
Monad Manifesto?
No, not Monad. Oh. I'm talking about the word. They're trying to get the same results across different text-based things. It was something. We talked about it yesterday. I know we did.
POSIX.
Oh,
moving away from the old model. And
yes, okay. I thought you were talking about PowerShell specifically. Yeah. POSIX is the standardization setup for the various unices and whatnot.
Okay. All right, and that I guess wasn't working well, and so this was two very, very smart people that said, hey, we can do better.
Well, it was more that the POSIX way of doing things assumes a text-based system, and Windows is very API-driven, so that didn't quite work out so well. Because for people who may not know, Windows has had a POSIX subsystem long, long before even WSL2 existed. So it's been there, and judging by the fact that most people don't know that, you can tell how successful it was in a Windows context.
Yeah, so based on conventions, Jeffrey's there talking a lot. And he almost always talks about the struggle to get anyone to support his idea. Mm-hmm. And so he wrote like this 16-page document called the Monad Manifesto, which is, which reading through it, he had a lot of, I don't know why manifesto, but he had a lot of really good ideas. And all of a sudden people started buying in, and they changed the name to PowerShell. Mm-hmm. And then 15 years ago, everyone's life was better.
Yep.
All right, and we have the up there. And then so... After that, about 10 years later, you have a day here, August 16th, they made PowerShell open source, which for Microsoft was unheard of at the time.
That's a pretty big move, because even how PowerShell remoting works, they originally wanted to use SSH, but they were not allowed to do that. They had to come up with their own system because, that's not the Microsoft way to use someone else's work.
Yeah, it was Ballmer was a hard no, and then he bought the Clippers and left.
Yes.
They brought in a new guy that's like, yeah, I don't care.
Yep.
And everyone's happier for it.
That's why SSH is an option in PowerShell core, not just because, it's a much easier way to connect to a Linux or, OS X system for PowerShell remoting, but it's something that was intended since the beginning, but ultimately did not come about because of company politics. Yay.
Jeffrey Snover, his vision in kind of one of the larger things that kind of was accomplished through PowerShell was creating this open sourcing PowerShell and kind of opening the door for the rest of Microsoft to kind of follow suit. And PowerShell as a language is quite impactful and like we use it, but even outside of that, what it represents is kind of a bit more than that, especially because way back in the day, back in like 2016, a lot of people thinking Microsoft open sourcing anything was crazy. And now kind of afterwards, thanks to Snover and everybody else, things have kind of moved along. And like you were saying, Microsoft employees contribute to OpenSSH.
Yep.
I think it's safe to say PowerShell has made 100% of the population's life better, and it improved Microsoft by going more open source.
Yeah, I just had to run solved -world hunger, and we're done.
All right, and what's interesting is, it seems like people come to it different ways. I learned PowerShell because my brother said, hey, if you want to stand out, do this. And everything he's told me, career-based, has paid off wonderfully. So I learned PowerShell. It's been great. It almost feels like I'm talking to a programmer when you're explaining to it. The way you approach it is always unique, and you've helped me through some issues I spent weeks stuck on, and you give me one line that fixes it.
Yeah, that's one thing. When I got started with it, it was working for a managed service provider and, doing everything manually, pointing and clicking through the whole way. And eventually, when I had some downtime on a 2008 R2 box, I'm wondering, what is that blue square at the bottom of the screen? So I go ahead and I click on that, and I'm like, cool, they made the command prompt blue. What is the point? And then eventually I ran into a problem where I had to solve an issue, basically restarting the service. multiple times a day because it was really flaky. And eventually I thought about, what does that blue square do? Can that help me out? And eventually I figured out how to do scripting things from there. I did know about batch a little bit, but the syntax was a no.
Yeah. All right, and then I think Andrew just watched our greatness, and he's like, yeah, I could get on board with that.
Yeah, we really led the way for him. No.
I don't think either of us worked here when he started watching those, but nope. I'm taking credit.
No, I think you did, Jordan. I think you just got hired because I remember when you wrote that first post about creating a Spotify playlist. Oh. I definitely ran that.
The history playlist.
Yeah. So I got into it a bit later, but I got into it after it was kind of more mainstream. There was PowerShell in a month of lunches. There was a lot of community resources. Jeffrey Snover created that awesome MVA series on how to do PowerShell for version 3. But yeah, man, PowerShell's awesome. Like you're saying, it's had a huge impact. It's really helped me increase what I can do. And it's also quite enjoyable to write, and it keeps providing value.
Yeah, and the best part is because it's open source, when people like you guys that are smart have an issue, you just build a module and then you put it online and everyone can then avoid that issue. I just go and look at modules. I don't actually contribute or create. But a good example is that playlist. When I wrote that blog, it was lines and lines of code quite a lot went into it, and it was very complex. And then 2 weeks later, they built invoke REST method, the command that came out there, and everything that I did is now a one-liner. It's which it's nice that it's now that easy, but I put in all that work and they couldn't even give me a month.
Nope.
All right. But because the community is so big, the important part it's good to know about the modules. Mm-hmm. Which they're easy to install. It's just install module, and if it's in the PowerShell gallery, it'll find it right there. I think we've installed most of the modules we can think of, or that we're going to showcase, except for have I done ships.
I don't know if that one is a module, but give it a shot.
We'll find out if it's a module. Look at that.
Ooh, it's looking good so far.
That's not a no.
Hey.
All right, and so that's the module ships, which we're kind of going to cover that a little bit in the future, but it's kind of the way PowerShell can read through registry or certs. You can basically make any data that you input read like a file system, basically.
Yeah. Why don't you pull up PowerShell real quick and show that? Because everyone's familiar with how to use a file system. You type ls and c, and that gives you the listing in C. Everyone's not so familiar with, say, handling the certificate store or the registry. There is regedit as an option, and there are all those nice APIs that Microsoft builds in, but it takes a lot of work to be able to move around in something like that.
What am I? Not local user.
HKU. Yeah.
Current user. There we are. And so that's basically it pulls in all that data that's normally not real readable and puts it into a file format, basically. Not exactly file format, but readable like that.
I can tell you, I've used the API way, and it is not that quick or that easy. You will eventually get there, but not that speed.
Yeah, and so ships is a way that you can take any data that you have and just make it so it's that easy to read as well.
Yeah, so for example, if you have a ticketing system that has an API endpoint, it is conceivable, I don't know if it's necessarily something you'd want to do, but very conceivable that you could make your ticketing system another drive in your PowerShell instance. And you could go ahead and CD over it, ls, get information, all that right there. It's a very nice piece of software, ships.
I would instantly delete everything on accident.
Yes, that is also possible if you write it out correctly.
Right, so Dakota, you can create a provider for kind of anything, and you're able to just use the built-in PowerShell commands to browse it as if it were a folder, or like you're showing here, the registry.
Yep.
Nice.
Yep. Get child item, remove item. Those are all. They don't say get files and folders or get remove files for a reason. They're generalized. They are designed from the ground up to work that way.
Nice. So you can expand PowerShell to kind of meet your needs, and it can kind of grow with you. Cool.
Yep. That's that programmer mindset again. If it doesn't work out of the box, I'm not going to go read any words like a nerd. I'm going to just go with what's there. All right, another one is, and I think all sysadmins run into this, is reporting. Mm-hmm. You have some executive somewhere that's going to want a pretty picture of the work that you do. And I'll be honest, that sucks. I hate it. I think we're all in this so we don't have to do that kind of crap.
Yep.
And that's where the community came in and they built something called Import Excel. which we're going to showcase this one. We've already imported this module. And I guess real quick, once you have the module, if you do have any questions, if outside of just going to the Git, you can do just git-help or hit
-gelp.
Right? And then I'll find one of the commands in there. They have to exist, right?
Yeah, you can
Export
do
Excel.
export Excel, import Excel.
All right, just run that, and it's going to give you all kinds of data about that command. It's going to give you syntax that you needed, what different information, have examples. Some of them will have where you can do online, will open up a web page. This one we tested, it does not.
Yeah,
but
sadly.
that's just set up. You have to tie it to, I believe, a URL, and then that'll open up for you. But just anything you need, if it's going up in the gallery, it's been vetted, and they have to have a certain level of help documentation, or they're probably going to.
Yeah, at least has to not be malicious. They do actively run scans to make sure there's not bad things going up there. So it's not a free-for-all.
Yeah. And this one, just to showcase, we're going to run git process on the machine. We're going to collect all that data on page 1. It's going to create page 2 with a pivot table. So we can send this up. I'll send this over to Kelly, and he can ooh and ah at the pretty pictures. F8 to run that. Did I actually run that?
You might need to just copy and paste it.
All right.
Give it a
While
moment.
that's running, it's running the commands right now. It should spit out the Excel, and it's going to open it for us. There we go. Maximize that. These are all the processes that are running, and if we come up to the pivot table, it just basically, these are the publishers and how much they're using, and then we have a pretty graph.
Yeah,
You can ooh and ah anytime, Kelly.
Ooh, data.
Yeah.
Ooh.
I cannot stress how nice this is. For anyone who has ever had to struggle using Excel COM objects to replicate this, the fact that he did this in just 20-something lines of PowerShell is mind-blowing. This is such a wonderful module.
Yeah, what I've learned is literally everyone in the community is smarter than me. So there is so much good information that all I have to do is be able to read what they've done to understand it, and you can do just fantastic things.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah, I think where this module really shines is it's kind of likely that you might already be running reports that you're exporting to CSV, which is cool. But if you really want to impress the people who are not IT related, add some cool colors, add some formatting, auto size it. It actually does make a difference. I can speak from my experience. When you're able to solve reporting problems for different departments, it just kind of turns the IT department into a value add, not just reactively solving things, but proactively creating cool solutions that, when that kind of thing spreads, it's a lot easier to justify spending more time writing PowerShell. So I like making it a little splashy.
The data's always there, but does it sparkle?
Make it sparkle, Jordan.
You're
It
bringing
also
the
does
oohs and ahs.
Other things where if you have multiple CSVs, you can capture all of those, put it into one Excel workbook, and they just have the different pages. It's a very handy way to not have to mess with things. I am terrible at Excel. I think it almost always involves math.
Yeah, I'm going to be honest. That pivot table I did, I don't know how to do that.
I have no idea. I think I've done it before, and I couldn't tell you how I did it. All right,
Worth noting that you also,
ahead.
don't need Excel installed wherever this runs.
Okay.
So you don't need to install Excel on your server necessarily if you're running it there or whatever.
So it's really magic, is what you're
Absolutely
saying.
messy. Yeah, it won't pop up like that if you don't have Excel there. But I mean, if you trust your work, which I mean, some of us here are geniuses. We'll just throw it up there and see how it goes. I guess before going to the next module, do we have any questions that have come in?
Sure, we could take a question. All right. Hey, guys, any PowerShell command to get who installed what software? Sincerely, Jason E.
To my knowledge, I don't think so. Anything that I've seen that's been able to do this in the past is because it has an agent that sits there and it's just always watching to see what happens. And even then, there's still some parts that'll trip you up. Say, for example, someone's using PDQ deploy to install some software. From that aspect, it'll look like the PDQ deploy user did it. Now, if you're asking, can I see it through PDQ deploy? I think you can answer that one.
I guess what you're saying, almost all the time where it has who did it, it's going to be an event viewer.
Yeah.
So you can find it for as long as that event has not been overwritten.
Mm-hmm.
So if you could have a script that goes and looks for the event ID for installed software and either copies that somewhere else where it's not deleted or makes reference of it somewhere, like you could have a inventory report that goes and just basically scans for that event ID and pulls it back, and that will be there until the next time it runs. So that will kind of give you the idea, but it's not going to be an exact. And if you miss like the window and it's gone, it's just gone. There's nothing that I know of built into Windows outside of Event Viewer to find that stuff.
Yep.
I have a question.
Another question?
I do.
Okay.
Will you take those pillows and lower them below the
Yes, I will.
couch?
Sorry, I think
Question
that was
mark?
me.
I think we need both pillows there.
Both of you, yeah.
We did it.
And let's show that on the capture side. Make sure we got them.
Spicy.
Yeah,
And there are now no
Just a-
pillows.
giant pillow right on your, just right in between you.
All right. Now that we fixed the important stuff. All right. The next module was burnt toast, which is the toast notifications in Windows.
Yeah.
Those are pretty handy. At first, I thought they just would it would pop up and go away a few seconds, but you can get actually pretty aggressive with these. It's a nice way to kind of alert users that things are going to happen. This one's the same thing. We're going to install, but in this case, I want to run this on a remote machine, and install module remotely doesn't work just out of the box. So what I did is I went and read a lot of Colby's work, and I stole and then dumped and made it worse what he put out there in the PowerShell scanner. Which, if you use our PowerShell scanners, there's his import module script is already in there.
Yep.
And then from there, this will make sure it installs, and then we're going to run the toast notification. We're going to deploy this once against Castello. I was going to run this as a new one to show that works, but it takes about 2 minutes to install if you do it that way, instead of just trying to spell Castello, because I can't. We'll go to the inventory. And so I'm just going to run against that one again, but this, I did test it. It does install. It just takes longer than we want in a live demo.
Can't do math and can't spell. You're the complete package.
I know.
But man, can he perform on camera.
And we're going to pull that up. We'll see if it registers for us and pops up. I'm tense.
Is it really stealing though? If the license is generous enough,
I guess it's not. All right.
what license did Colby use?
Well, if it's in our repo, I think we use the MIT
Yeah.
license for the
yeah.
repo.
That's
And
Take
plus,
it
Kobe
away.
is flattered that I stole his work. That doesn't even.
if you're watching, thanks, Colby.
That doesn't even begin to touch what I've stolen from you. 80% of the thing I get credit for is direct ripoff of Kobe's random thoughts. All right, so this is the toast notification. I put it up as an alarm. This one actually has an alarm bell. It's just not coming through with this one. And then basically, we have two options. What's my presentation style? Is it snooze-worthy or dismissible? We're just going to dismiss that presentation style. And that's just a way you can add it to a package where it's a PowerShell step. You want to send it out there. You want it to pop up, hey, this is happening. You can either put it first to say this is going to restart. You could put the alarm where they can't snooze for a certain amount of time. Or you can put it after, just let them know it's done. It's just a way to pop up for the users, just kind of a quick message to give them random info. And plus you can put pictures of me beardless laying down, apparently.
Colby is watching. Hi, Colby.
Jordan, this module is also really great. I know that a common script that a lot of people have is the new user creation type script that might take a few minutes or up to 15 minutes. You have to provision a mailbox, where you can put this command at the very end of a script that runs for 15 minutes like that, just so you know when it's done. It's a really nice way to either interact with you if you're the one running the script, or also your end users in the PDQ context like you showed.
Yeah, so if you're not getting enough calendar alerts, this is the next. And I think we're talking about, they said this can run at the end of jobs too. It's not specifically just at the end of the script. If it's part of a job process, you can run for each job, which is, in the lab, I'm not sure if I'll use it, but in the production, I bet you could probably come up with some pretty awesome uses for that.
You could. For those of you who don't know, a job is a PowerShell job that allows you to execute some code in the background. For myself, I will often forget about it. So it would be very nice to have that little toast notification saying, hey, you're done.
In the chat, someone says, can toast notifications ignore D&D?
Do not disturb.
Yeah, do not disturb. I don't know.
We'd have to
that
look
one?
into it more. I believe it's possible. If you right-click the, sleep option, there is no option to say no notifications whatsoever, but you can set it to priority only. So I believe I have to look into it. Don't know for certain. If there's a way to set the priority, you could probably bypass that.
Got progress bar. There's an expiration time, but suppress pop-up, that's no good.
Yeah, I don't know.
Or
Yeah, I don't see anything from just the regular logs. It's something we have to test to know for sure. I don't know on default. All right, for the rest of this, I'm actually going to hand the mouse and keyboard over to Dakota. Now you get to see a real professional on how he does things. All right, and those were some of the modules, which is kind of showcasing if you're thinking about it, someone's probably done it. You can find it. If you don't want to write it yourself, you can go and if you like what's there, add to it. The community of PowerShell is fantastic, and no one's going to be grumpy that you improved something, or even if it isn't what they're aiming for, they're not going to be mad that you made the attempt. They'll just appreciate the effort. But the other part is...
So yeah, this is the one part that for me keeps PowerShell relevant, even when I'm not on, like, say, a Windows system, is its ability to interact with REST APIs. Now, you can do this in many other different languages, but I've not yet come across something that is as nice in an interactive context as this is. So in this case, I'm connecting to a REST API here that gets you information on to-dos. Let's see, I think, is it F8 still on?
It is a REST API.
It is an HTTP API that returns basically JSON usually, sometimes XML or other things. So when you get that information back, when you use invoke REST method instead of, say, invoke web request, that automatically translates the blob of JSON that is difficult for a human to parse into pure PowerShell. So like I've just ran this here. It pulled down some to-do information. So let's go ahead and throw out some objects so we can see what they look like. So you can see without me having to even really understand the API itself, I already have this to-do object. As you can see, it's very real information with its lorem ipsum. And then now that it exists in a PowerShell object, I can now do PowerShell things to it. So in this case, I'm going to run a command where I'm going to take the user ID, this value here, and find where it equals 3, and then I'm going to print out just the titles. So if I run that, you can see here are the titles for all of the to-do objects. Oops, scrolled up too far.
I can read all of those.
Yeah. Here are the to-do titles for user 3. So next bit is getting it a bit more complex. What I'm going to do is I'm going to get all the to-dos where the user ID is equally divisible by 5, where they have not been completed, and then I'm going to get the user IDs, and then I'm going to get a unique array of them. And then,
So that's a lot of words. What is this ultimately coming down with for people?
so what I'm going to do is I want to figure out what to-dos are not completed yet, and then I'm going to see who in that list has completed their to-dos, and then give me that user, which is the next bit here. So if I run this, I need to get the users stored in an object, and then now I'm going to do my comparison. So I'm going to say, hey, tell me all the people who are not in the incomplete pile. So I run that, and I can see there's one person, this Irvin Howell. They have completed all of their to-dos that are equally divisible by 5.
Go Irvin.
Yeah, kind of a contrived example, but it's very useful if you need to go ahead and glue something up together that doesn't exist natively in some sort of service you have.
So basically you queried 2 different databases and then you did a comparison to find out the results you want, which is very handy. I've used this production just a few times. We did a webcast a while ago where we automated packages that are not in the package library. And invoke REST method was critical for that because it was supposed to help us to find and download for whatever we couldn't provide in the library.
Yep. Whenever there's a REST API, use invoke REST method. It's very good. And then one more thing that dovetails onto that is convert to JSON. You see, what we've shown so far is just pulling information down. Sometimes you have to push information up. And REST APIs usually want that in a JSON blob. And I'm going to be straight with you, that's a real pain just to write out yourself. So what you can do is you can take a hash table here and then convert that to JSON. So in this case, I'll go ahead and run that. And then let me type out new, there we go, to do. And click tab. So you can see that gets properly formatted JSON. No squishy human to accidentally make a mistake here. Not that I've learned from experience or anything. And then,
So you basically just DNS'd it up.
In a sense,
Like
yeah.
it initially gave us in user context we can read, but you put it in so the computer can read it, which is for automation the more important part.
Then the last bit here, I'm going to take that new user to do, put it in my body, put the URI in there, and I'm going to do what's called a post. We won't go over all of that because we're talking about just PowerShell right now. And I specify the content type as JSON, and I click F8, and boom, I have created a new to-do post object.
Well, I will drink to that. Oh, all I have is this non-alcoholic.
Don't do it.
Don't do it.
Don't.
I said I was gonna.
Nope.
Flavor country.
You said you were going
So-
to drink to it, not suffer to it.
I guess since
For
it's now an alcoholic, would you call it an and Coke? Like, I don't think so.
I can tell you, most times I make puns and people get upset. But for some reason, Dakota makes puns and it's just gold. Everyone loves the Dakota pun.
It's the delivery.
It's-
You
oh.
got to work on that, Jordan.
Before we move on from invoke REST method, though, I think that earlier we highlighted how PowerShell is open source and that's all cool and all. But invoke REST method is actually one of the commands that was pretty much exclusively written by a community member. A lovely fellow named Mark Krause put a ton of work into invoke REST method for PowerShell core and later to be relevant in the future, to be able to be used, like Dakota said, in different contexts, right? It makes PowerShell very useful as like a duct tape language, able to tie different cloud services together. And it's really cool.
Yeah, the effort he put into that cannot be understated. Invoke REST method on standard Windows PowerShell could be really hairy when it came to like things like OAuth authentication.
Yeah,
it's dead simple in PowerShell. You know, the PowerShell 7 core, whenever they renamed it.
Yeah, when
It's
I
so nice.
when I wrote the blog before this existed, I'd have to basically open it up and then from the URL capture the OAuth token and then use that to pass it through. It was a process. It took a while, but this is I love it now.
Yes, it's absolutely wonderful.
All right, I guess before we go to the next one, do we have any questions or?
Yep. Hey guys, any experience with the new PowerShell version with WSUS support? Marcel L.
So I don't think they're have, or I don't know if they have plans to do that, but they definitely have not added WSS support for Windows 7, or no, sorry, PowerShell 7.
Oh,
It is
they
not.
have.
They have added.
They have. The new version, it is, you can push it out and control it via WSUS, and it's also installed via Windows Update.
Is that the 7.2 that came out? It was like a week ago.
I believe it was 7.15. I don't remember. One of those versions.
So that was brand new because I know one of the modules that we had gone and looked at basically said it didn't work. It was when you sent me. It was a remake of the WSUS cleanup,
Yes.
or
that one.
not the WSUS cleanup. What was it? I don't know.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, WSUS cleanup that was only written for PowerShell 5 because it wasn't 4.7. So there's probably an update coming to that module in the future then if the support is there.
Yeah, hopefully.
Yep.
Yeah, as far as experience, not really. It's I can't imagine unless it's broken, there's really any difference than pushing any other update.
Yeah. I will say if you've been using PowerShell 7 with the PS read line, which is in my opinion a must-have, you want to make sure you update PS read line before PowerShell. Otherwise, the certain beta clashes pretty heavily with it.
Yeah.
All right. So the next one with add type. This
So, yes.
is why you said it seems like you're coming at it as a programmer.
Yeah, more of a programmer bit. So add type is very, very neat in my experience. It is essentially a built-in C# compiler for PowerShell. So you can see here, let me go ahead and I'll close the part. This is a lot of C# code. I myself have not written it, but it does a pretty neat thing. What it does is it will tell you if Windows is playing sound or not. So can I go ahead and run this on this computer, or do I have to run that?
We can, but I believe this namespace of this class is physical machine specific, and this is a virtual machine. So it's,
Okay, so it won't work, yes.
but basically what this does is if someone has written something in C# or a different language with add type, you can, I don't want to say massage it to make it so it works with PowerShell. So
You will have to. Sadly, due to some... In PowerShell 7, once again, it's much nicer. In Windows PowerShell, it's a little bit harder. You have to target a C# specific version of, I believe, language version 5. So this can get a little hairy if you try and run it, like it just didn't work. But on newer versions, it should just work. This one is massaged to work on almost any version. So let me come over here, paste that all in there. Blah, 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 all that stuff. So what it's done is it's dynamically compiled that. And now if I do my namespace, and then my class, and then the method.
I assume you made up the name of that namespace and class on the fly.
Yes, I did. I was answering this for a poor soul who was working at a radio station who needed to know if Windows was playing sound. And he had this code and it's like, how can I get it working with PowerShell? I'm like, I can help you with that. Now, I'll go ahead and run this, but it won't work because it's a VM and it doesn't have sound.
So, and this is kind of an example of you're looking to solve something with PowerShell, you're online and you'll find a whole bunch of like C# or basically anything .NET related that you can, with add type, convert that and make it function within PowerShell as if it was just a regular PowerShell command.
Yep, you've brought it right in.
All right, that's fantastic. And that's why it seems like you're a programmer, because I never messed with any of that.
Yes, it's been one thing is, especially on the PowerShell journey, one thing I really got to touch into is like, this has to be possible. I've seen programs do this. I have to be able to do this in PowerShell. And a lot of that led me down the path of, well, yeah, but you need to interact with the Win32 API. I'm like, okay, I'll figure that out. And eventually, that's where it all comes from.
Wonder what it's like to have a go-get-it attitude like that.
More like I don't want to touch 200 computers. I just want to do this and wait 20 minutes.
That is always better to not have to manually do everything.
Welcome to why our company exists.
All right. So from here, I guess we could do like a speed round for questions, or if not, we could dive into operators.
We've really got 2 questions in the queue.
Okay.
So how much time do you need with your operators?
I mean, how much time do you want us to spend? We could do a quick breakdown if you want.
There's more here. When we're getting to the end of this, I was going to list off quickly all the things we didn't get to.
All right. Let's take one question, then we'll go into your next topic real fast. Cool?
All right.
All right, gentlemen, is it possible to get the users in the remote desktop users group from a computer via PowerShell? Thanks, Fede A.
Yep. I think it's git dash. I always put AD group because I'm used to Active Directory, but it's just git dash group or member.
It's git local group or local user group. I forget which one. One of those. The local part is key. I remember
let's
that.
try it in the.
Yeah.
See if we can't find the command live. And just start tabbing.
I think it's local group member.
Local group, and then you want member for that. Here we go. And then you have to specify the name of the group you're looking for, and it should give you all of those. So in inventory, if you built a PowerShell scanner with that in there, it should give you the list of users and send it back. You might want to change the data output a bit so it looks a bit better for you, or you're looking for the name there.
Yeah, because I didn't remember it. But PowerShell is pretty neat. I can just do
Look at that.
that. Put it there, and boom. So there you go. You can go ahead and see. This is a group that exists in that group. So if you're looking to expand out the user specifically, you're going to have to do some glue between both get local users and get AD. Was it group members? I forget what it is. There's another one very similar for AD where it gets you the members in a group. But it is indeed possible.
Yeah, so if you ran that as like a inventory as a PowerShell scanner, you could run that against every machine, and each machine would have that in a table for you. Before any other questions, Jed mentioned for the WSS it was the AJ Tech, which is fantastic. There's another module out there for someone that didn't want to pay for it, but I think you agree with me on this one. The work he did, if AJ wanted to get paid for that, more power to him. He did a lot of work with WSS that makes it pretty fantastic.
Yep, I still have the last version here released for free. It's very useful.
Yep. All right, so we could do the last question, or we can dive into operators.
Let's do operators.
Let's do operators, all right.
Are they smooth operators? Sorry.
So
Some of them are.
So, and this all came out with, I think, PowerShell 6, but
Yes.
PowerShell 7 is the
I
one.
think there's a mix of 6 and 7 between a few of these here.
Yep.
But one of the ones that's pretty neat is, I forget the exact name of it, but it's basically like a null assignment operator. So that means if I have A here, there's nothing there. It's null. It doesn't exist. If I go ahead and paste this in here, What that does is now A is equal to the 2131.2. So let's go ahead and we're going to try and assign it again, but with that same operator. But what happens is because A is not null, it keeps the original value. So where would you use this? Really, it comes down to whatever you are doing.
So this is like instead of having to write a if $A does not equal null, then you could just put 2 question marks.
Yep.
I wish I knew about that. I mean, I use it all the time.
The more you know. Yeah.
The issue is though you can't run it backwards in like Windows PowerShell.
Yep.
But for interactive stuff, it saves a ton of time and is quite cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, put that out there again. This won't work on Windows PowerShell. This is all very specifically PowerShell Core or later, 6, 7. No 5 and earlier.
All right.
That one's, I think Z is already null, but I put that there just in case.
Probably has to double check.
All right. So when you get rid of that equal sign, this is what you call a null coalescing operator. So in this case, what this means is that PowerShell will print the value of Z if it has something there. If it's empty, it's null, it'll print 100. So if I run that, I get 100. So let's go ahead and we'll set Z again. Now it has a value. So if I run that same command once more, you can see it gives me the output. It does not give me 100 because Z has something.
So this is a good way, if you didn't get any results, it's almost like an error code.
Mm-hmm.
It's that if you get number 100, you know specifically you didn't grab the data for that last poll.
Yep, it all depends on what you want to do. It would be very useful in that case. It's basically another way to say yourself an if null. So here's another interesting one. So this was added, again, PowerShell Core. This is an OR operator. This means that if this command succeeds, it will not run the command on the right. So in this case, bad123, that's not a real thing. So if I run this here, it's going to try and ping. Ping's going to fail. You can see ping request failed, and then I get ping failed. Now, if I use this right here, ping 1111, that will work. So when I run this, I get the ping output, but you'll notice I never get the right output. So this is, again, another way to save yourself an if-else. But this is for interactive commands, where I want to run this command, and if this command fails, then run this command immediately after.
It's almost like it's by default eating the error and just giving you what you want specifically.
Mm-hmm.
And Marcel, I actually didn't know this. Marcel says Control-Shift-Scroll wheel, you can change the transparency.
Huh.
I had never messed with that.
So control, I want to try it out. Maybe it just
Is that
has
only
to
for
begin with-
ISC or does it work with VS Code too?
Yeah, it might be just the regular terminal. Let's see here. I just want to try it out.
You know, we
I'm
have to know.
curious. Yes.
Give me the secrets.
Yeah, it's secretly a self-destruct mechanism, guys. He's totally playing you.
I gotta tell you,
Oh, look
Alt
at that.
F4.
Look at that.
look at that. If Marcel decided he wanted to just give us bad information, he could. We would fall for it.
We would, because we trust him.
One time Marcel told me that all his friends jumped off a bridge, and I should as well.
Oh, well, I mean,
It was a long
congratulations.
time in the hospital, but
Congratulations on your survival.
yeah. All right,
Bridge
so,
was 3 feet.
hey, don't ruin the story. All right, so here's another one. This is essentially doing the opposite of what the other one would do. This is, if this command succeeds, then run this command. So in this case, it'll ping 1111, which we know will work. Maybe.
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh.
What happened?
Cloudflare's having issues.
Well,
All right.
Still success.
Yeah, so that finished up ping success because ping says, yep, I ran, everything's good. Now in this case, we flip it over the bad way again. I'll run it. Ping will fail, and it does not say ping success.
It just gives you the error.
Mm-hmm.
So my question is, a lot of the value PowerShell is like the verb usage in the commands. It's very readable, where this is readable to some people, not to others. So is this something where if you're writing on the fly, this is just a quick way to save steps, but if you're doing something where it's going to be used a lot, do you still want to follow the readable format? Or
In general, yes. These are something that are very useful for interactive purposes because you can go through and write out an if-else clause in a single line, or if you hold Shift-Enter, you can do, I'm not on this terminal, but on a regular PowerShell terminal, multiple lines. That kind of sucks. So it's nicer just to have these quick operators for that interactive use.
Absolutely.
And I think that Microsoft has consciously invested in things to make the console experience better for PowerShell. Because with PowerShell being cross-platform, now it's an option. You can call native tools if you're in Linux. You can call whatever. And you can type it from the command line without having to do a ton of scripting by using shortcuts like this.
Yep. And they've also, for a little bit of a blah, 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 nerd, there's also ANSI escape codes that are supported now. So if you have a terminal that can handle that, you get fancy, colorful output from the new PowerShell.
All right. Would you guys like a question?
Let's do it.
All right. Let's take our final question. Gentlemen, is there a way to trace or monitor the installation of any software with PowerShell to later be able to automate the uninstall and clean up the leftover registries and folders? Happy B-Day, PowerShell. Sincerely, Orlando H.
So the cleanup would be interesting because every bit of software is going to be different. If it's an MSI, then it's going to have a different GUID. So it's hard to track like something that encompasses everything. We do have a script out there. I think we used it with me and Josh. We had uninstall best practices, or there's a knowledge base that Renzo put out there where it will go through registry, look for certain softwares by name, and it'll just follow the uninstall string that's in there, which that's the way you get it all uninstalled. But if they leave behind registry remnants with their uninstall, you can't account for all software. You'd have to know what software you're looking for and then target it specifically. I can't think of a way to get more granular than that.
Because I know it's possible, but it's going to take a lot of work because there is a bit of software out there, an uninstaller. I don't remember the name of it off the top of my head that does that. After it finishes uninstalling, it says, here are bits and pieces we think are left over. Go ahead and select what you know should be gone. So I don't think there's anything you can do that's fully automatic. I believe it's still going to take a little bit of elbow grease to identify exactly what you need to get rid of and then include those bits as parts that execute after. I don't believe you're going to find anything that will be able to give you a all-encompassing view, because a lot of the time those leftover bits don't actually come from the installation process. They come from using the program over time.
All right.
Could I say one final thing? I think today we touched on a whole bunch of different ways that PowerShell can be expanded to fit your use case, to fit whatever services or products, if it's web-based, if it's local, if you're using it as a console. And this speaks to the sacred vow that the PowerShell team had, which was if you learn PowerShell, they do everything to make it the best investment you've ever made. And I think that I can speak for me. I've really had that experience from learning PowerShell. It has been one of the best investments I've made. I've gotten a ton of value out of it. So have my employers. So it's awesome.
Yeah, it is the single best thing that's ever happened to my career. It made a lot of things possible. It was fantastic.
Yeah, same here. I'll concur with all of that. It led me down the path of learning a little bit of C# and .NET, which has immensely helped my ability to write PowerShell, as you noted earlier. There's a lot of things you do. It seems like you're writing like a programmer.
It feels that like you go over my head so quick sometimes. I just nod like, oh yeah, I do that. All right, so thanks for returning. We couldn't be happier that PowerShell's turned 15. It's a big day in its life. It's open source. If you're not using it regularly, you're not doing your job as efficiently as you could. The more you automate, the more time you have to get better at whatever interests you the most.
Yep, and there's still a lot we haven't covered. Things like splatting.
Yeah, we could unfortunately we could do a surface level with no deep dives on this one.
There's so much more.
All right, for PDK.com, I'm Jordan.
Yeah, and Dakota.
For PowerShell 15th birthday, you got an extra 15 minutes today,
There
everybody.
you did. Thanks so much for joining our webcast and celebrating PowerShell's 15th birthday. Happy birthday, PowerShell. Remember, next week it is Thanksgiving here in the United States, and we will be not doing a webcast. We'll be chowing down on Rack of Spam or Spam Wellington. Have a fantastic week, and we'll see you back here next time.